So it's Christmas, it's a time of celebration, eating too much food, regretting it, exercising in the new year. Or is it? Because as a sports trader, my Christmas is a little bit different, probably from most people's Christmas. Please like and comment on the video below. That will allow me to produce better quality videos and more of them in the future. So we are coming up to a busy period of the year. Busy for buying presents, visiting friends, putting up with relatives, entertaining relatives, and all of those sort of things. It's Christmas, well, almost Christmas. And it's an important time of the year in the sports cycle as well. So the sports cycle is what happens over the course of the year, and you have cycles within that cycle and multi-year cycles and so on. But in the sports cycle, the Christmas period is a very busy one. So there was a bit of fuss about whether footballers should be playing this Saturday so close to Christmas. But the interesting thing about this year is the sports cycle is and Christmas is sort of coinciding to provide quite a clear-cut opportunity in terms of where we are and what we expect to do over Christmas. Now, I'm not suggesting that you dump your family and trade over Christmas, even if you are really sorely tempted, but it is an important time of the year, and for me it's an opportunity to sign off the year in style. So I will be putting a lot of focus into it. Now, I've been doing it for 20 odd years, or nearly 20 years, so my family is used to it. They know what the sports cycle is, they know when I will and won't be around, and we work around that. So I go out and visit loads of friends, relatives, and do all of those things generally this week. I will trade this week, but I'm not expecting to get much. But when I trade next week, it's going to be a little bit of a highlight for me. So when you look at the way that the card is set up, you look at all of the sport that's going on: football, cricket, tennis, darts, well actually there's no tennis, darts, and tennis starts in January. You can see there's a lot of activity packed into that particular week. And for me, as a real trader, it's an important week of the year. I follow the sports cycle, so it's not an option for me to duck out when there's a lot of big sports going on. I have to trade it. That is my job. It's a bit like being a Premiership footballer and not turning up for a Saturday, because, you know, obviously you need to turn up on a Saturday to play those key matches, and for me as a trader, I have to turn up and be around when those key matches are on. So I parallel the sports cycle as you would do as a sports person. So how does the week trade? Well, the interesting thing that we've got this year is it lines up quite well, because we've got loads of, it's sort of a quiet week in the run up to Christmas. There's not a great deal going on. There's bits and bobs here and there, and we've got Ascot this Friday and Saturday. But when you look at the way that it lines up, we actually line up perfectly, because the racing doesn't stop on Saturday as it does in some years, or on a Friday. It doesn't, you know, we're not getting that congestion around that point, and it doesn't wipe out part of the card. We get the opportunity to trade the Saturday this year, and then we've got loads of stuff, loads of good quality racing and other sport taking place next week. And the focus will be Ascot this Friday, Saturday, and then as we head in to the early part of next week, we obviously have Christmas taking place. But on Boxing Day is when all of the sport suddenly comes back into the mix, and we have the King George meeting at Kempton. I remember one year when it was almost snowed off, or it was snowed off, and they had to push it back. We had incredibly heavy snowfall, but thankfully that doesn't tend to happen very often. And the King George at Kempton is obviously a huge race. Now, the problem that you have on Boxing Day, not only is escaping the family, I shouldn't say that really, should I? But it's a very congested schedule, so you've got loads of stuff going on all over the place, and it's actually difficult to get a grip on all of it. So my focus on Boxing Day and the day after, because it's a two-day meeting, will be on Kempton and the big races at Kempton, but some of the other stuff I'm not really that fussed about. I may actually drop huge swathes of it just to focus on those big races. Now, I focus on the big races because I can pull out big results. I've done really well at the King George meeting in the past. I never know how I'm going to do this year. I don't know exactly how the markets are going to trade. That's one of the skills of trading, is adapting and being aggressive or less aggressive depending upon how you think it's going to go. But I would hope that I could get something out of Kempton. So I may drop some of the other stuff just to focus on Kempton. I imagine a lot of the other stuff will be, and no offence intended to the race courses that are on, but it will be complete dross. So your focus has to be Kempton. But also, when you look at this week, we have the Leopardstown Christmas Festival, and that's pretty big as well, and it's been a really interesting meeting for a number of years. So that will pull you through the week as well on the way to the next Saturday. So there's plenty of stuff to get stuck into next week, and in fact I think the day after the King George will probably be a little bit easier to trade. So if you wanted to spend Boxing Day with your family, as you should do really, in all honesty, then it's the day after you may actually get a perfect dovetail of races and quality, whereas on Boxing Day it's a bit chaotic and may not work particularly well for you. But then as you progress through the week, there's a reasonable amount of quality around, and overall that little period between Christmas and New Year's Day is actually a good period for many different types of sports. There's loads of decent quality on all over the place, so there's plenty of opportunities there. And the interesting thing is a lot of people will not trade it because that is like the week that you take off and you spend with family and other stuff like that. But that may explain why it's slightly better trading markets, perhaps. I don't, I can only hypothesize on that. But for me, it is an important week. I will be actively trading it, and the return that I get from that week makes it worthwhile. And the fact that I've been doing it for so many years, I always feel like I need to raise the bar every year. That's, that's just the sort of drive you get as a trader, I guess. But having done it in previous years, I want to do it this year to at least maintain what I did last year and hopefully improve it a little bit and move the whole thing forward. There's a couple of other new things that I want to try this year as well that I haven't done before, that I've created this year, so I want to see how they work during that particular period. Now, from a personal perspective, you're going to have to make a judgment about whether you trade or not. Now, as a BetAngel user, of course, you can trade automatically. So by me pointing out where these key meetings are, you don't actually have to be behind your desk. You can just point BetAngel at it and get that to trade. So hopefully I've highlighted those opportunities for you. But if you're trading manually, you may want to make a judgment on whether you think it's going to be worthwhile or not. The first time, when I first started trading, I didn't trade this period, but I slowly cottoned on to the opportunities that were there, and it's just part of my annual cycle now. This is the chance for me to round off the year in style, and I'm already ahead of where I was last year, so this is the chance to just really push down and go well beyond where I got to from last year. If I have a good week, that will make things look comfortable and the whole year will look very good. And if I have a bad week, then okay, fair enough, maybe I could have used my time a little bit better, but I'm still ahead of last year, and I'll probably gather some information and data that I can use in next year or whatever. So yeah, it's going to be a very personal decision about whether you choose to trade this particular week or not. If you're new to this, and you have a family, then maybe you probably don't want to. Maybe just nip in and have a look at some of those key markets. Don't abandon the kids for the sake of the King George meeting. So yeah, you're going to have to make that decision yourself, but at worst you can always put BetAngel on automatic trading, get that together with some data and have a look at what's going on. But if you check out the forum over the Christmas period, I'll be there posting, giving you a view on what I think is happening and how it's going and so on. And I'll trade right through from Boxing Day right through to New Year's Day, because New Year's Day is a really big day of activity in the markets as well. But again, the only problem you have there is similar to the one that you have on Boxing Day, where there's just fixture congestion and they can sort of mess around and create all sorts of problems. Anyhow, that's the Christmas period. Hopefully I've explained that well enough for you to understand whether you want to do something or not. There are some key moments in there. It's a big turnover meeting, and therefore it's something that I'm going to actively do. Now, I've done some of my Christmas things already. We're going out to visit everybody over Christmas Eve and Christmas Day and so on. So I'm looking forward to that, but I'm also looking forward to those particular markets. And with that, it just leaves me to say, if I'm allowed to say it nowadays, Merry Christmas.